Okay, I didn't really hear an answer on the pursuing the actual agreement with Taiwan. But I've also unfortunately got a question for Minister McGuinty.
I've never heard, but I love that I just did. I've never heard a reporter say, unfortunately, I have to ask a Liberal question. Remember this? Chinese envoy warns Canada against sending MPs to Taiwan or warships through the Taiwan Strait.
The new quote-unquote strategic partnership that Prime Minister Mark Carney struck with China this year would be damaged if Ottawa sends more military vessels through the Taiwan Strait, or if Canadian parliamentarians keep meeting with officials in Taiwan, Beijing envoy says. In an interview Thursday, Wang Di, China's ambassador, said he's optimistic about warming ties between Beijing and Ottawa, but laid down expectations for how Canada deals with the self-governed island of Taiwan going forward. Canadian MPs and senators visit Taiwan regularly on trips paid for by the Taiwanese government, and have done so for decades. The trips have normally included meetings with Taiwan's foreign minister or its president or vice president.
Now, this is something we haven't shown you. This is an official post from the Embassy of the People's Republic of China in Canada. It says, Chinese ambassador to Canada, H.E. Wang Di, conducted an exclusive interview with the Globe and Mail, Canada's largest English newspaper. Now, this is what they put on their post. Addressing the Taiwan question, Ambassador Wang stressed that the Taiwan question is a red line that must not be crossed, since it lies at the very core of China's core interests and serves as a crucial political foundation for China-Canada relations. He pointed out that Prime Minister Carney repeatedly reaffirmed Canada's commitment to the One China policy during his visit to China. He therefore called on the Canadian government, to strictly adhere to its One China government. That's a lot more firm than what was in that Globe and Mail article, let me tell you. And that's no interpretation, that's directly from the Chinese embassy's website. So, I found that very interesting. What I also found interesting is Michael Chong. He is, as we said many times, one of the most respected members, not only in the Conservative Party, but also in the entirety of Parliament. And he looked at this and he said, you know what? I have another idea. I'm going to Taiwan. Conservative MP Michael Chong visits Taiwan to meet President in defiance of China. Now you may be wondering, why would Michael Chong do that? Why? What's up with that? Well, I'm just going to take you back to 2023. And you talk about obstruction. How about obstructing the fact that two Conservative MPs and an NDP MP were being threatened and having their families harassed for 2 years, and you didn't even tell them?
Mr. Speaker, I've just been informed by the National Security Advisor that the CSIS intelligence assessment of July 20th, 2021 was sent by CSIS to the relevant departments and to the National Security Advisor in the PCO. This contradicts what the Prime Minister said yesterday. He said CSIS made the determination that it wasn't something that needed to be raised to a higher level because it wasn't a significant enough concern.
CSIS made the determination that it wasn't something that needed to be raised to a higher level because it wasn't a significant enough concern.
Will the Prime Minister correct the record that this report and information was sent to the departments and to the Privy Council office?
So what was going on there is this was right after Michael Chong finds out, because it was leaked, that his family was threatened by the PRC because of how he voted in the House of Commons. This is when Erin O'Toole found out that he was under threat from the PRC for the same reason. And this is when Jenny Kwan of the NDP found out she was under threat in her family back in China for the exact same reason. So Michael Chong has a bit of a bone to pick with PRC, understandably so. And he has even more reason to stand up to the PRC and say, you're not going to be pushing Canada around. You're not going to be telling us where we can and cannot go. And the interesting thing about Taiwan is that Taiwan has never actually been part of China since the communist regime took over. That's a very, very important point. Because the communist regime tries to say that, well, they broke away and, they're part of China. And, well, they didn't break away from China as it is as a communist party. So what are you talking about?
A Canadian MP has arrived in Taiwan to meet President Lai Ching-te in defiance of a recent warning from China's ambassador against further trips to the self-governed island by parliamentarians from Canada. Beijing considers the democracy of 24 million people a breakaway province, despite the fact that China's governing Communist Party has never ruled the territory since it took power more than 76 years ago. Conservative foreign affairs critic Michael Chong arrived in Taipei, the seat of Taiwan's government, on Sunday and is scheduled to meet with Mr. Lai, the Taiwanese president, on Wednesday. The MP undertook the trip himself without any direction from the Prime Minister Mark Carney's government. He is personally paying for the cost of the visit. Mr. Chong, who has served as a member of parliament for more than 2 decades, said in a statement he made the voyage to Taiwan, 160 kilometers off the coast of China, to push back against a recent warning by China's envoy to Canada, Wang Di. Mr. Wang, in an interview with the Globe and Mail April 30th, warned that a new strategic partnership that Mark Carney struck with the Chinese President Xi Jinping would be damaged if Canada sent any more warships through the Taiwan Strait or allowed any more MPs or senators to visit the small democracy. The ambassador appeared to be laying out expectations for Canada's behavior as the two countries attempt to build on a truce reached in January 2026, when Mr. Carney and Chinese President Xi Jinping made a breakthrough after a painful trade war and years of frosty relations. China is increasingly trying to diplomatically isolate Taiwan in an effort to take over the island. While few countries have official diplomatic relations with Taiwan, Western countries have built robust unofficial ties to the island.
Now, the fascinating thing about that is if you contrast how the Globe and Mail words that versus the statement on the Chinese embassy site, very, very different interpretation. Because they're pretty hard-lined in the statement on the Chinese embassy's website. And they say, this is a red line. Must comply. Like there's very specific and intentional wording there that they're saying, you must do this or else. Whereas the Globe and Mail's like, well, it appears like they're just nudging Carney that, hey, if you don't do this, then, the relationship could be damaged. I don't get that opinion.
The Chinese ambassador, in his interview last month with the Globe, did not distinguish between MPs with the governing Liberal Party and opposition parties, including the Conservatives. He said all should stop visiting. In January, 2 Canadian MPs from the governing Liberal caucus cut short a trip to Taiwan just before the parliamentary delegation they were with was due to meet Taiwanese President Lai and other officials. This happened shortly before Mr. Carney's meeting in Beijing with Mr. Xi. The MPs said they were returning home 3 days early, quote, informed by advice from, end quote, the Canadian government.
So, Mr. Chong said that his trip to Taiwan has 2 purposes. One, to show solidarity with the democracy at the front lines of intimidation from the People's Republic of China, and to assert Canadian sovereignty in the face of a warning from the PRC's ambassador to Canada about Canadian MPs traveling to Taiwan. Quote, during my visit to Taiwan, I will be meeting with Dr. Lai Ching-te, President of the Republic of China, Taiwan, Zhang Niyang, Minister of the Trade Representative, and Dr. Chen Mingqi, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. I will also be meeting with officials at the Canadian Trade Office in Taipei. Canada is a sovereign and independent country. We do not take direction from a foreign government about where Canadian MPs can travel internationally and where Royal Canadian Navy ships can transit in international waters, Mr. Chong said. Michael Chong is laying it out, saying, listen, we're a sovereign country. No country's going to tell me where I cannot and cannot go. Now, you'll notice that Taiwan is called the Republic of China, and China is called the People's Republic of China. And this is where the one China narrative comes from, where Canada accepts that the People's Republic of China is is the actual government of China. And we recognize Taiwan as not China, because if we recognize the Republic of China, aka Taiwan, as China, then that would include mainland China. It gets very confusing. So this is where this kind of comes from. But fascinating thing, and the most disturbing but unsurprising thing, is that since that article dropped on April 30th, Mark Carney's total responses to the ambassador laying out that condition has been 0. He has said nothing. Mr. We're a sovereign state. Mr. We will always be free. Mr. Hegemons will not boss us around. Has not responded to the hegemon that he just signed a deal with. He's being a good little boy and doing what he's told, evidently. Now, Anita Anand was asked a question at a recent press conference, and here's what she said. So kudos to CTV and the mainstream media for doing their job on a more frequent occasion this year.
For Mr. Anand, I wanted to ask you, as President Xi is pushing President Trump pretty hard on Taiwan, I wanted to know why the work on the trade agreement with Taiwan has been halted in our country. Is this something that Canada is no longer pursuing anymore because we are concerned about China's reaction to it?
Thanks for the question, Mike. Actually, Canada has strong economic ties and strong people-to-people ties with Taiwan, and those ties will continue. At the same time, since 1970, Canada has had a long-standing one China policy, and that policy remains in effect. And so those are the two tracks that we adhere to from a foreign policy perspective, and indeed that is what I have reiterated in my conversations internationally.
Okay, I didn't really hear an answer on the pursuing the actual agreement with Taiwan, but I've also unfortunately got a question for Minister McGuinty. So, Minister Anand, if you'd like to jump in to follow up on that, that's up to you.
I've never heard, but I love that I just did. I've never heard a reporter say, unfortunately, I have to ask a Liberal question.
Love it.
Just saying. Unfortunately, I have to now ask Minister McGuinty a question. Now, why is that important? Because what the question is you were pursuing a trade relationship with Taiwan. Now you're not. Why? Does it have anything to do with what the ambassador said?
Maybe.
I
mean, we don't have the proof, but I'd say odds are pretty good.
We have a one China, path, and we have economic ties to Taiwan. And you can even hear, and that's Mike LeCouture from CTV, and he's like, "It's not what I asked, and you didn't answer the question I was asked, but now I have to ask McGuinty a question." Go ahead and jump in, Anand, if you want to actually answer the question that I asked. Spoiler alert, she doesn't. And I'm not going to bother showing the question to McGuinty. So this is what all comes back to Mark Carney and him feigning concern for the people of Ukraine. But even more infuriatingly, we're sending billions of dollars of aid to Ukraine, only for us to be sending billions of dollars over to China, because Mark Carney wants to increase our trade to China, wants to put more money into China, only for that money to then be used to manufacture drones, to send them up to Russia, to continue the war in Ukraine. So, sorry, Mark Carney, I don't believe you. But you're the one that's trying to say that you're sharing the same values as the Europeans. Well, the Europeans, they don't like what China's doing either. It's probably why they're not doing what you're doing, which is getting into a strategic partnership with them. But most of those leaders probably weren't the vice chairman of a company called Brookfield, which has billions upon billions of investments in the People's Republic of China and don't stand to actually benefit from China doing well.